We begin tonight with breaking news, and this really is breaking news. Last night, Checkpoint revealed $160 million has so far been spent on repairing the repairs to earthquake-damaged Canterbury homes. We also revealed it was more than twice the sum predicted as the overall cost of re-repairs less than 2 years ago. In Parliament in June 2016, the then Minister Jerry Brownlee answered a question. As for the cost of the second-time repairs, it is estimated they will be in the vicinity of some $60 to $70 million overall. As we learned yesterday, that went to $160 million, but we also revealed last night that that figure was only for managed re-repairs and did not include cash settlements paid out to people who then took care of their own re-repairs. Just before we came on air, and I'm holding the paperwork, we were given that figure by EQC. It is a further $100 million. EQC has just told us 8,000 properties had a remedial issue lodged. This is problems with repairs or scoping that led to a total of $100 million in cash settlements. That's over and above the figure of $160 million we gave you last night. And that figure has now increased by $10 million to $170 million as at 3 a.m. this morning. So, and we're still doing the maths and we're still waiting to talk to somebody on the record about this. Checkpoint now believes the total cost of repairs and remediation to repair work done under the Canterbury Home Repair Program is $270 million. That's more than $250 million and 4 times the estimate in Parliament less than 2 years ago. The Minister, we understand, is just being briefed on these numbers. We hope she will join us after 6 o'clock tonight. That is our understanding of what is going to happen. Joining us live now is Christchurch lawyer Peter Woods of Anthony Harper. Peter, are you there?
Hi, John. Yes, I'm here.
Hi, nice to talk to you. Now, look, I know that we've got these figures and you haven't, and you will have heard me read them out there, but just to establish your bona fides, tell us how many actions, homeowners, people under the Canterbury Home Repair Program you are representing or have represented against EQC.
Over 200.
Over 200, right. Are you surprised by the figure of 8,000 properties that have had a cash settlement for remedial issues, that is repairs to repairs or inadequate scoping or inadequate repairs?
Well, John, look, the figures are a real shambles, aren't they? We were told in May 2016 that there were about 8,400 remedial inquiries. Since then, there will have been thousands more lodged with EQC. In May 2016, we were told they'd paid $7 million to settle 2,200 claims. So the 6,000 they've settled since then have cost, well, sorry, I've lost track of your figures, but about $153 million, I think, for the 6,000 when they had settled 2,000 for $7 million. The figures really don't stack up, do they?
I'm really confused about this, but we think the totals are right. We have these totals from EQC. So what we now believe very strongly, and we wouldn't report this if we didn't think with a great degree of certainty this was the case, $170 million has now been paid out in managed re-repairs, and a further $100 million has been paid out in cash so that people could take care of their own re-repairs, a total of $270 million. Now, what that means is that what it must mean is that there is a very much higher callback rate or re-repair rate than we have ever been told. And I'm going back now in my head to that IMBI report in 2015, which looked under homes, and it only had a sample of 101 from memory, 11 of which had no structural issues, so it only had a real sample of 90. But it found that 32 of them, so roughly a third, were non-compliant with the building code. Now that is starting to look like a pretty adequate predictor of what's happened since.
That's right, and you've got to remember that IMBI survey was actually the homes they looked at had been selected by the insurers and EQC. They weren't the worst cases. In fact, if you'd complained to EQC, you were excluded from that survey. So I expect the figures are going to be much higher than that.
You have also said on Checkpoint before, and I was really arrested by this, that there are still an unknown number of properties in Canterbury where people believe in good faith the repairs they had or the scoping they had from EQC were adequate, full and final, and they don't yet know that re-repairs or remediation are required.
That's right. I think there's hundreds, if not thousands of those. And they're mainly the pre-1970s homes with the rubble foundations.
Can you tell me about those foundations? So what was taking place underneath the floors of homes in Canterbury before 1970? Because this is really material, because time after time after time, when EQC scopes or EQC repair work missed structural damage, it was in the foundations, wasn't it?
That's right, and if you haven't got the foundations fixed properly, you haven't really fixed the rest of the house properly either. So most of the cases we're dealing with for pre-1970s homes, the concrete perimeter ring and the piles aren't what we now call modern or good concrete. It was quite acceptable for builders to bulk up the foundation by chucking boulders and bricks and other materials into the foundation. That means that, I'm sorry, I'm not a structural engineer, but in my layman's approach, it means the concrete is not as cohesive as modern concrete would be. And EQC assessed the damage to those foundations on the basis of the MBIE guidance, which deals with how you can repair earthquake-damaged properties. But the MBIE guidance assumes that the concrete is modern, good concrete. And MBIE has very recently, it's confirmed expressly that its guidance does not apply to rubble foundations. It's taken years, but MBIE has accepted that the concept of rubble foundations and that there are many houses in Christchurch and New Zealand with rubble foundations and that its guidance does not apply. So there's been a systemic failure by EQC right at the outset when it looked at those foundations, and it hasn't assessed the damage properly, and it certainly hasn't fixed it properly.
How many homes were done under the Canterbury Home Repair Program? I'm a bit confused about the overall number. I have two in my head. One is 67,000, which I have here in a briefing, an EQC briefing to the Minister Jerry Brownlee in April 2017. And one is slightly higher, 69,000. Do you know what the overall figure was?
No, I thought it was at 67,000.
Okay, let's work on 67,000. So we have 8,000 properties cash settled to the tune of about $100 million. And if people are listening and wondering what this is about, this is re-repairs. So we are not talking about repairs, which were absolutely natural and inevitable and substantial after the earthquakes. We're talking about repairs to the repairs, work that was missed or inadequate or not done completely or not done well enough. So we know there's $160 million has been spent on managed re-repairs. We now know that $100 million has been paid out in cash settlements to 8,000 properties that decided to take care of their own re-repairs. So we're looking at What's that?
Could I interrupt there?
Absolutely.
$100 million, that could have actually been paid to homeowners who are then pushed to their insurer to deal with a proper fix. So EQC could be paying what they say is their cap payment for the original damage in effect, and saying to the homeowner, now you go off to your insurer to deal with getting your house fixed properly.
And once again, for people outside Christchurch, I want to explain that. That means that EQC only pay up to $100,000, right?
That's right.
And then the insurer, if the repairs are substantial, the repairs to the repairs are substantial, and in structural foundation repairs they often are, the insurer would step in and pay more. But that's not part of EQC's payout, is it?
No, but it does mean the $100 million isn't enough to fix the homeowner's problem.
But what we're talking about of the 67,000 is now a large percentage of re-repairs, aren't we? We've got 8,000 that have been cash settled, more in financial terms that have been managed. So it would not be unreasonable to say, 15, 20,000 potentially have had some form of remediation?
Well, it's hard to get a firm figure on it, isn't it? But as you say, there were 8,300 as at 2016. There's 1,200 at the moment. That's over 10,000, and there'll be many more.
Right. of course, we need to remind people this was a major event, 2 major earthquakes, September and February, a lot of substantial and large earthquakes after that, and in total there have been thousands of earthquakes in Christchurch. But one final comment from you, Peter Woods. Are you surprised by the extent of the re-repair work that has been required?
Oh, no, and there's a lot more that's got to be done. I think what we're seeing is that the claims for remedials now that are coming in are probably harder, probably more expensive, and taking more time for EQC to figure them out. So I'm sorry to say that the money they've spent so far is probably on the easier stuff. And it wouldn't surprise me if that figure's going to double.
Peter Woods, who is a lawyer for Anthony Harper, joining us live. This information just breaking, and we are trying to get the Minister. Obviously, she needs to be briefed, and she is. We have confirmed with her office that she is going to join us after the news at 6. So at the moment, we think that figure of 160 that we gave you last night has risen to a total of $270 million spent on repairs. We'll have more later in the program.